Hey everyone, my name is Josh and welcome back to your fourth stimulus package and news update. We have a lot of news to get into in today's video, but first, if you would like to receive 2 free stocks from Webull valued up to $2,300, make sure to claim them by clicking my link, which you will find in the description box below. Okay, so first off, I hope everyone had a great Veterans Day yesterday, and I wanted to quickly take the time to thank all of you veterans out there for your sacrifice for our great country and putting your lives on the line so the rest of us can sleep well at night and be free. It can't be said enough. Thank you for your service.
The symbols of America and freedom are interlocked, and they are present here today. The flags flying, the white grave markers, and all of us, the veterans and service members who protected our nation. It is you that we celebrate and honor.
Okay, so next Monday, just a few days away, the House will finally be returning to Washington back from their 1-week recess. And next week, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi promised the Progressive Caucus of her party that they would be holding a vote on the Build Back Better plan. This was after an agreement with moderate Democrats that they would hold a vote on the infrastructure package as long as they agreed to also vote on the reconciliation bill next week. Of course, one condition of the vote next week was the Congressional Budget Office first needed to release a final cost estimate score of the bill. And recently, the CBO said that it cannot give a definitive date for when it will have that number. This means if moderate Democrats led by Josh Gottheimer aren't satisfied with the data they receive, they could push back the vote. Meanwhile, even when the bill does eventually pass in the House, they'll still face issues in the Senate where Joe Manchin still isn't sold on the bill. Just recently, Manchin expressed opposition to another provision in the package, this one, a provision that would give tax credits for union-built electric vehicles. Per the House text of the bill, a $7,500 tax credit would be given for new electric vehicles, with an additional $4,500 in credits if the vehicle is made in the U.S. by union workers. Automakers with non-union workers such as Honda, Toyota, and Tesla have criticized the additional credit as unfair, while at the same time, not that it's much of a surprise, but the United Auto Workers Union has praised it as supportive of good working conditions. In a statement, Manchin said, "We shouldn't use everyone's tax dollars to pick winners and losers. If you're a capitalist economy that we are in society, then you let the product speak for itself, and hopefully we'll get that'll be corrected." Manchin said the product should speak for itself, and businesses with union workers shouldn't be rewarded unfairly. Also recently, according to Axios, due to the recent report on inflation, Manchin is now ready to hold off on the social spending plan until next year. For progressives, this would be an absolute nightmare. For the past several weeks, they've been concerned that once moderates got the infrastructure package passed through, they would then come up with any excuse to not move on the reconciliation package. And now, all of that seems to be coming into fruition. Alongside Joe Manchin, we've also seen big businesses stepping up their attacks on the Build Back Better bill. Recently, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce accused the authors of the reconciliation bill of using gimmicks to cover up well over $1 trillion in spending. In the letter, they wrote, "As currently drafted, the reconciliation bill would expand or create new entitlement programs and refundable tax credits, but then sunsets many of these programs, in some cases after just 1 year, to disguise the true cost of the bill. Given that the bill's proponents clearly intend for these programs to continue past their sunset, lawmakers should be provided with a Congressional Budget Office estimate of the true cost of the bill if these programs were permanent. Experts at the Penn Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania have estimated that if these programs were made permanent, the actual cost of the spending included in the bill would be $4.1 trillion. So their case here is the current estimates are only based on if the provisions in the bill, such as the child tax credits, only last for a certain period of time. However, once these programs do expire, they argue it'll be tough not to re-extend the programs, politically speaking. Once people get used to receiving monthly payments of $250 to $300 per month for the child tax credit or receiving the other free things, it'll be very tough to take that away. So because of that, most likely these programs would end up being permanent. Therefore, they argue they need to figure out what it would cost to make all these programs permanent. And if they do become permanent, how much would it then cost? Meanwhile, with all the warning signs about the Build Back Better bill possibly dying, Vice President Kamala Harris somehow believes it's going to pass very soon. At one of her speaking events in France, she said she was confident that Congress will pass a much larger spending bill very soon. In this bill, she said it will support our nation's working families and help us meet our climate commitment. Of course, after our world leaders fly home from their climate summit on their private jets, they'll soon need to come back to reality. People back home, here, and abroad are dealing with a huge amount of inflation. Most families, believe it or not, are more concerned with paying their rent or mortgage and keeping food on the table for their families rather than climate change. On Wednesday, President Joe Biden said he's directed his top economic aides to focus on reducing energy costs, which he believes is the cause for accelerating U.S. inflation. Back in October, our Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said we haven't lost control and we shouldn't be concerned about inflation long term.
I think he's wrong. I don't think we're about to lose control of inflation. I agree, of course, we are going through a period of inflation that's higher than Americans have seen in a long time. And it's something that's obviously a concern and worrying them, but we haven't lost control. And as we make further progress on the pandemic, I expect these bottlenecks to subside. Americans will return to the labor force as conditions improve. And remember, the spending that we did that partially has caused this high demand for goods, it's been very important in making sure that the pandemic hasn't had a scarring effect on American workers. It's given them enough income and support to get through this while still being able to put food on their tables and keep roofs over their heads.
One of Barack Obama's top economic advisors, Larry Summers, disagrees with Yellen, though, and has said for quite a while now, with all this extra spending, that inflation should definitely be a concern.
What is Yellen weighing in a way that you are not?
Look, I've got great respect for Secretary Yellen. But, you know, the administration's budget and the administration's forecast with this stimulus was that this year we'd have 2% inflation. And it's likely to come in 3 times that. I think they're just not recognizing just how much demand is being created by the tremendous wall of money, 15% of GDP in 1 year that they released last spring. And that, in conjunction with a central bank, the Fed, that keeps the interest rate at zero, that's buying all kinds of bonds and mortgages when in the middle of a housing boom, just sets off a dynamic. And then the thing about inflation is you start chasing your tail. Rising inflation of inputs leads firms to raise their prices. That leads other firms to raise their prices. And the whole thing spirals. It can be broken, but it needs to be broken by some kind of dramatic action. And those kinds of dramatic actions often cause recessions. So I think we're speeding down the road at a really rapid rate. It's kind of a downhill road, and it's not going to be so easy to put the brakes on here. And that's why I'm concerned. And I think that the policymakers in Washington, unfortunately, have almost every month been behind the curve. They said it was transitory. It doesn't look so transitory. They said it was due to a few specific factors. It doesn't look to be a few specific factors. They said when September came and people went back to school that the labor force would grow, and it didn't happen.
Summers is obviously concerned, so is Manchin. So is this bill going to end up completely dying out? In the end, I don't think the progressives will allow for it, but I could definitely see many more measures possibly being removed. But on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. Again, if you would like to receive a couple free stocks from Webull, make sure to quickly claim them by clicking my link in the description box below. To receive the first stock, you will need to fully open an account. Then to receive the second free stock, which will be valued up to $2,000, you'll need to make a qualifying deposit of at least $5. And even if you aren't all that interested in investing or continuing to invest at this point in time, you can always sell the free stocks you receive and transfer that money, however much they're worth, right back to your bank account. So free stocks or free money is completely up to you. So once again, I hope everyone has a great and safe rest of their day, and I'll see you in the next